Hi, this is Gesine from Hastings Museum and Art Gallery. Welcome to our second mini photography workshop. This time we will be talking about still life. What is a still life and how can we use it in photography? We will again be using very simple things we have around the house, just normal everyday items. And the camera I'm using again will be my normal smartphone camera, and I will be using natural light. So like in the last workshop, no special equipment will be needed. When I started this project, I looked at traditional still life paintings like the one in the background by Vincent van Gogh, but also at modern takes on the subject. There are a lot of artists that like to use still lifes in their work because it's a very controllable subject. I was also looking for a good definition of what still life actually means, and I came across this text. A still life, from the Dutch stilleven, is a painting featuring an arrangement of inanimate, everyday objects, whether natural objects like flowers, food, wine, dead fish or game, or manufactured items like books, bottles, crockery, and so on. The Tate Museum Glossary puts it very succinctly, defining the subject of a still life as anything that does not move or is dead. A still life can be realistic or abstract depending on the particular time and culture in which it was created and on the particular style of the artist. The still life is a popular genre because the artist has total control over the subject of the painting or photograph, the lighting and the context. The artist can use the still life symbolically or allegorically to express an idea, or formally to study composition and the elements of principles of art. Within the genre of still life, the image on this slide is really on the opposite end of the scale from the Van Gogh painting we saw in the previous slide. First of all, this is a photograph. It uses very bold colors and a variety of surface textures and directed lighting. Before we start our first project and start setting up our own still life composition, I quickly wanted to mention the photo editing app I use on my phone. It's an app called Snapseed. It is free to download for Android phones and for iPhones, and you can quite easily improve your images by using the adjustment tools that this app provides. It is very easy to use and fairly self-explanatory. I also used it in the previous photography workshop that we published 2 weeks ago. When it comes to setting up your own still life composition, I find it very useful to try and look for different colors in the objects that I'm using, just to give a little bit of variety. Also, try and find items with different surfaces, like shiny items, matte items, textured items. That really helps adding to the interest of the image. Choose different size items, taller ones for the background, smaller ones for the foreground, and then have a play with the arrangement of your objects and see what looks good to you. Also, have a think about what kind of backdrop you would like to use for your composition and what kind of surface you would like to place your items on. You can choose really anything from a brick wall or an old table or a piece of cloth, sheet of paper or card. You could decide on the color you want to use, a color that works good with your items, and decide on a light source. It is very easy to use natural light. You can use a window, basically, you can use a desk lamp or a torch, and just have a play and see what looks good when you look at your composition. This is the setup for the first project. As you can see, it's all really simple and low tech. It's all arranged on top of a clothes stand near my window. So the items I used was a milk jug, a few dried twigs, a sugar bowl, a tree cone, a shell, 2 clementines, a brass bangle, and the background and surface I place my items on is just mount board with a sort of a black velvet finish, and the light source, as you can see in the background, is the window. So this is the shot that resulted from the setup you saw in the previous slide. I'm happy with the arrangement, but I think that the image is a little bit too bright. So I transferred it into Snapseed and adjusted the brightness as the first step. Okay, so I've now adjusted the brightness of the image. It's a little bit darker and I think it looks better that way. The next thing I would like to do is I would like to remove the reflection of myself from the shiny sugar ball, because I just think it detracts a little bit from the composition. It's completely up to personal preference, but I would like to have that surface a little bit more neutral. And for that, I will use the healing function in Snapseed. Okay, so I used the healing brush in Snapseed to remove that particular bit of reflection on the sugar bowl, and also a few dust specks that were on the black velvet in the background and foreground. So I'm happy with the image so far. The only thing I really want to do now is to add some vignetting, which means to make the outer edges of the image slightly darker, which sort of gives it a more finished look and also draws the eye more into the center of the image and the actual subject. Okay, so the vignetting has been added, and I think it really enhances the composition as it draws the eye more to the center and the actual objects of the still life. I also find that it enhances the colors of the different objects, especially the fruit, in contrast to the dark background. So I'm quite happy with this image and I would call this finished. As you can see, the second project was set up in the same place. Again, the light source is natural light from the window, and the backdrop and the surface I've arranged the items on is again the velvet mount board. This time I used the dry twigs that we had in the previous composition as well, but I added a china doll's head and a little silver watch case, and just arranged the items until I thought they looked quite nice together. Okay, so this is the resulting shot from the arrangement you saw in the previous slide. I like the shot. I think it's fairly well balanced, but the only thing that I would like to change is that sort of dark area in the bottom right corner and the top left corner. I think there's a little bit too much black. So the next thing I'm going to do is crop the image in the Snapseed app. Okay, so I have cropped the image and I'm very happy with the distribution of sort of shapes in the image now. What I would like to do though is to enhance the detail a little bit in the image, because I think that the color tones of the objects are a little bit similar. So I think the image would benefit from increasing the structure and sharpness. You find the structure and sharpness adjuster in the details tool in Snapseed. After increasing the structure and sharpness in Snapseed, I find that the textures in this image are much better now. I think it really enhances the difference in textures between the shiny doll's head, the little silver object, and the twigs. Now, I think that the image appears a lot more crisp than before, which I really like. So the next step will be to add some vignette around the edge of the photo. Like in the previous project, I added the vignetting around the edge of this image. I used quite a strong vignette this time because I think it really draws your eye into the image and makes the doll's head the center of your composition, which I like. You can further enhance this effect by using some edge blur, which is an interesting thing that Snapseed offers. It's a function where you can select areas of your image that you want to have out of focus and other areas that you want to have in focus. Okay, so the edge blur has now been applied, and interestingly it gives the illusion of a very shallow depth of field, which is something that you would normally get if you use a DSLR camera. It's not that easy to achieve usually with a smartphone camera, but this function in Snapseed allows you to do this, and I think it looks really good, and again it helps enhancing the focus on the main subject of the image. This is the end of our short little tutorial for this week. Thank you very much for watching. If you feel inspired, why not shoot some still lifes yourself and share them with us in the comment section below. We would love to see your work. Thank you very much and goodbye.